Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Carrie today. Carrie, welcome to BecomingMeTV. And today Carrie's going to share her becoming story, what has made her who she is, and how she's becoming who God made her to be. So Carrie, to kick it off, who is Carrie?
Well, I'm Carrie. I love people. I love meeting new people. I love making people laugh. I have a very witty sense of humor, very punny. I like the puns. Somebody once told me recently that I'm the dad joke person. So I'm the one that will always try to throw in that little zinger and get the laugh. So
That's awesome.
So if I make puns during this, I'm sorry. That's just who I am.
I love it. That's awesome. So fun. So let's just dive in, because I've had the privilege of hearing your story. And for those of our viewers who have watched even our October series at Becoming, the questions everybody's asked and no one wants to answer, some of you might be going, oh, Carrie looks familiar. So we've heard bits and pieces of your story. I've had the privilege of hearing the whole story, and I'm pumped for you to share that today. So what's your story? What makes you you?
So basically, my becoming story has been, a pretty long journey. I started out raised in a Christian home, and really just knew God from a very early age, and just kind of grew in that relationship with Him, from learning about Him to forming a relationship with Him in high school, and really starting to make commitments to follow Him, and just really growing in that journey. And I'm very, very, very blessed for that upbringing, and just for the church and what that has meant to me growing up and being involved in that. But I was not very sheltered, but lived in a very church world. So when I went off to college, I decided that, I wanted to dabble in some other things. So I started, got really involved in the church there. And, there were other people that were involved in the church there that, had different views on things than I did. So I kind of dropped a few of my beliefs and was like, is it really that big of a deal? And, so just kind of started dabbling in a lot of things. I started hanging out more with people in my major. I went through a pretty bad breakup. Like, we thought we were going to get engaged. Like, we're talking about that kind of thing. And then it was pretty mutual in the end. Just, we weren't right for each other. But after that, I kind of felt like I lost a lot of my friends, because we all had mutual friends. And so I started hanging out with people that I knew from classes more, who were not church people. And they didn't know that side of me, because that wasn't something that I would just bring out right away. So going through all of that, I started going to, parties and hanging out with different people, and just kind of started justifying a lot that I probably shouldn't have, but started drinking a lot underage, and just, but it was all okay, because, nothing bad was happening, and I was just having fun, and that's what college is for. And I was, working hard and playing hard. So I was an advertising major, and was really, really into that, because I wanted, being my witty self, I wanted to write jingles, which we won't even go there. But that was what brought me into advertising. And then I found out that I'm not that creative person. I'm more of the management side. So, but that's kind of what led me on that path. And so after this breakup, my dream, what I had always wanted was, I wanted to be in New York. I wanted to go on Madison Avenue, have that, advertising, agency, the big girl dream.
Oh yeah.
And, so after that, that was my focus. It was, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get me, to that Madison Avenue agency. That was it. So I had several steps in, this process, but the college that I was with, they did an annual trip up there, and you got to tour the agencies and interview for different positions, and it was all very interesting, and it was very, work hard, play hard, yet once again. So when we were up there, it was very, very party-esque. But I interviewed at 2 large worldwide agencies up there. Got offered both. Got offered both positions, which I had to turn down, but we'll get there in a minute. But during that time of trying to, figure out who I was and what I wanted and what I saw myself doing, and like everything that I had worked for, it was all me. There was no like, hey God, what do you have for me? It was like, I've worked so hard to get here, so this is what I want. So during that time, I was, out at a bar one night with some friends, and this guy just started showing, a lot of interest in trying to get me to go home with them. And after a lot of struggle, I finally gave in and said, fine, like, we'll just go, like, nothing will happen, it'll be fine. And that wasn't the case. Something did happen. Not necessarily something that I wanted to do, but, it happened. And so that was my virginity. I lost my virginity to a guy at a bar that I didn't want to. So that was very eye-opening. And that was I think that was my rock bottom. That was what it took for me. That's what God did, or allowed to happen, I guess, to get my attention back to him. Because I came home and I told one person. That was my roommate, and I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth, like what had happened, because she's like, what happened to you? And I'm like, I couldn't even like get it out. But, and I just remember like one of the first things she said was, oh my gosh, like we need to go like get a plan B or something, like you can't get pregnant. I'm like, well, I'm gonna get pregnant because, like he used protection, because that was the one thing I tried to stop it, and so, but that wasn't a worry, but the devastation of it, and like, how did I let it get this far? How did I put myself in this situation, and how did me like pulling away from God so much like lead me down this path? So I had this whole big, she drugged me to church the next day. And so I sit there and cried the entire service, which I hadn't shown any emotion in 2 years, because for me, emotion was a sign of weakness, and weakness wasn't going to get me to New York. And so nobody had seen that side of me. So of course everyone's like, oh, Carrie's crying. Why is she crying? Like, like, how can we pray for you? And I'm like, just pray for me. Like, just pray for me. You don't need to know, just pray. So after that, like that night, I think I really had just a come to Jesus time where I just pulled out my journal. I just prayed, and I was just like, God, like I've fallen away from you. Like I should have like done better. I should have been closer to you. I should have listened. I should have, listed on and on. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway, and I'm sorry. And like really walking through those steps of like forgiveness, like I felt so much forgiveness and love from the Father that like I can't even wrap like my head around still. Like I don't have words for it. But I think anyone who's really been in that type of rock bottom situation understands that, and like what that emotion brings of just really being wrapped in, his arms. And so after that, that night, I was like, I just felt him calling me to give up alcohol. Like, do not drink again. Like, wow. And I'm like, okay, God, like, how long are we talking here? Is it like 21, or is this like for 30 days, or like, what does this look like? And all I heard was 30 days, like just, and I was like, okay, like that seems like more manageable for me right now. Because of the people I was around. Like, what am I going to tell them? Like, I'm fasting for God. I didn't feel like they would understand that. So, I was like, okay, God, I'll do it. For 30 days, I will not touch any alcohol. So about 2 weeks later, I hadn't told anybody at this point, except for my roommate. And we were having a conversation about somebody being pregnant or something. And I just got this fear of like, oh, wait a second. I'm like calculating dates. I'm like, am I late? No, you're freaking out. It was one time with protection. You're fine. You're freaking out because you're afraid you're going to get caught, And so I remember like it just was all constantly on my mind. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to take a pregnancy test and just to see the negative so I could move on, you know, and just to see the negative. So of course, you know, I go to the convenience store way across town where nobody sees me and nobody knows, through the self-checkout line, you know, speedy quick. And so I get home and the test is positive. And I'm like, whoa, no, this can't be positive because it's supposed to be negative. So then I like go to the, you know, convenience store right on campus. And I'm like, I don't even care at this point. Like, I just need to see a negative. Like, please just someone give me a negative. And so I have like 3 more, and I took 2 of them, and they were both positive. Actually, they said pregnant thanks to the, you know, readout. And I'm like, okay. So I just laid in the bathroom and cried at that point. So my roommate came home. She wasn't home at the time. And she was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong? Because I mean, I'm sitting here in a heap in the floor of the bathroom, just crying. And, you know, I just pointed, and that was all I could do was just point. And she walked over there. And I remember the first thing out of her mouth was, what does the first one mean? And I'm like, what do you think it means? Like, I'm pregnant, like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, oh, maybe they're all wrong. And I'm like, not 3 of them. 3 of them aren't wrong. Like, I love her so much. Like, she was my person through all of that. And, she just helped me through a lot. So we were sitting there on the bathroom floor. I'm just crying, and she's just sitting there. And she just looks at me. She's like, do you want to pray? And I'm like, no, I don't know what to pray for right now. And so we're just sitting there. And so the next day, like, she took off work and took me to a crisis pregnancy center, where I was able to like talk through it with people who are trained in that type of thing. And the only thing I could really process at the time was, I'm pregnant from this guy who I only know his last name from his bar tab. Like, I've looked him up on social media. Like, that's the only contact I've had with him. Like, I have no way to fund this baby. Like, I have no right in raising this baby. Like, I'm still a kid myself. Like, I can't, what about me? What about my dream? What about my career? What about, you know, like, I'm never going to find a man. Like, what does all this mean? And so I'm a very logical thinking person. So for me, it was, the only logical thing that made sense was adoption. And so that was kind of what I came out of that meeting with the packet on adoption. Because my whole mindset going into this whole thing was, I want what's best for this baby. And, so for me, that seemed like the best choice. So then, you know, after processing more a little bit that afternoon, I ended up telling my parents that evening, which was not fun. Because I mean, they didn't know I drank. They didn't know I lived this double life. They had no idea. And it was very hard. And then I had to tell my little brother, who, you know, I've wanted to set an example for. And like, that was probably the hardest person I had to tell was him, you know, because he was in high school, and, you know, I wanted him to, you know, live a good life. And here I am, you know, having to tell him, hey, I want you to do things that I'm not doing. And, so that was hard too. But, you know, my whole family has been super supportive from the beginning. And they, you know, like, whatever you decide to do, like, we're going to support you. So we're going to help you, whether that's, you know, a place to live, whether it's, you know, financially, whatever you need, like, we want to help you. And so kind of taking that into consideration, like, I'm a list person. So it was pros for adoption and pros for like keeping the baby. And I just made lists and just wrote everything down, and looking at it, it was really, everything on the adoption side was very selfish for me. It was, well, I want this for my life, and I want this for my life. And I kind of looked at it and I'm like, well, if I really want what's best for this baby, then that's not adoption for me, for me keeping the baby. And that gave me so much like excitement, because I mean, this is my baby. Like, you know, I want this baby, but also like, I felt this assurance from God, like, this is what you're supposed to do. Wow. And so I was just like, okay, this is scary, because everyone's going to know, and everyone's going to ask questions for years and years to come. So after that decision was made, a lot of things just started coming into the light, like how God had really woven all of this together. Because, you know, I was praying very hard about these internships, because I'm like, if I go up there and live this, party crazy life up in New York. Like, what does that mean? Like, is this one instance enough to stop me from, doing it over and over again? Or am I going to try to cover up one mistake with another and another and another? And so I just remember really praying through that time and just saying, God, like, how you're the only one that can see the future. So if I can go up to New York and like just be myself and be who I am, please let me go, because I've worked so hard. But if not, please slam the door in my face, make it obvious so I don't go. And then I found out I'm pregnant. And I'm like, oh, all right, God, not the answer I was expecting, but I got it loud and clear, like, not going. And then also like the whole like fasting alcohol, like I didn't have a sip of alcohol the entire time I was pregnant, which would not have happened had I not listened to that, and just little things like that. So during all of this, my husband, Blake, he and I were friends, and he was kind of like showing interest in me a little bit during this whole crazy time. And I was like, I'm not really interested in you. And so as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, well, I'm going to scare him off real good. So I sat him down and I was like, well, so I have some news for you. I was like, I'm pregnant. And I just remember he was the only one that reacted this way. He got this big goofy grin on his face. And he just said, congratulations. He said, you are going to be an amazing mom. And I was just like, somebody gets it. Like, somebody's excited with me instead of like, what did you do? How did this happen? Like, somebody was genuinely excited. And so our story is very crazy. God is like divinely woven our story. Very first night we met, 10 years ago. But just in a very, very brief nutshell, like he told God, God told Blake, like the first night we met, that I was going to be his wife. And Blake has discernment. That's his spiritual gift. So it's not one of my strong points. So when he was like, well, I feel like God's calling us to date. And I'm like, he didn't say be my wife, because I feel like I would have been like, whoa. So he said, I feel like God's calling us to date. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you think God's doing, like, let's get to know each other first. Like, let's talk for a little bit, and then we'll see where that leads.
Oh, that's too good.
Yeah, so we talked and we dated for like maybe 6 months, and then we were long distance, so we ended up calling it off, but just remaining good friends. And that's kind of where we were during this whole pregnancy thing. And we were at a church event that weekend. He had actually driven in because he was playing in the band that was actually doing the worship at the event. It was very strange. Very godly woven.
I love it.
But, and so he told me that weekend, he goes, Carrie, this baby, like, is going to be my child. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, no, like, you don't, like, I feel so connected to this. And I'm like, whoa, like, whoa, no. So I think that I try to justify a lot of that. And I'm like, well, maybe God's just telling me that some man someday is going to be okay with it, And I was going through a lot of just kind of self-pity, I think, just how I had, put myself in this situation. I felt used. I felt dirty. I didn't forgive myself. And he deserved better. Like, Blake deserved better than me. So I pushed him away, and I was, not very nice about it. But he was so persistent. To the point where he'll just tell you, like, he was on his like roof, like begging God, like, I don't want her. Please, God, I don't want her to be my wife. Like, please send me someone else. No. He said that, like, every single girlfriend he had always prayed for God to send him a shooting star so that he would know that was the one. And then a shooting star goes across the sky. He's like, but like, so anyway, we ended up, after Kennedy, my daughter, was born, we ended up getting he was there for me, and he never left, no matter how mean I got, how, persistent I was in pushing him away. He never left. And so, we decided, like, after seeing him, like, with my family and interacting with Kennedy, my daughter, he was there when she was born. Like, he was in the waiting room, waiting. He was one of the first people to hold her. And, so it's just like that whole story of how God just brought us together is just amazing. But, we had a discussion in March, like, hey, are we going to date? Like, hey, are we going to get married? Because we can't just date. Like, it's us, and we have the, baby, and like, what are we going to do? So we had that discussion in April. We were engaged in September and married in February. So
wow.
very quick. But yeah, everything's just, God's just woven everything together between, like, his life and my life, and both of our dreams individually and together, and just how, and with Kennedy, just watching her grow up, and like who, like, God has created her to be, and like the, just the girl and the woman that I see her becoming. Like, it's so cool, because I'm just like, you child are like, you're special. All kids are special, but she's super special.
Yeah. How old is Kennedy now?
She just turned 7.
So cool. So cool. She's adorable too. Oh my goodness. I love all of your pictures of her.
She's
so cool. Man, thank you for sharing your story. Oh my goodness. You inspire me to my core. And just your bravery and courage, and it's huge. So hearing your story, what would be something, if you were sitting across from another woman, kind of hanging out like we are right now, what would you say to encourage her on her own becoming journey?
Well, one thing one of my mentors told me one time, that's just really resonated with me over the past year or so. I was telling her my story, just kind of getting to know each other. And I just remember her looking at me, and she said, Carrie, I would never wish what you went through on my daughter. I could never want anyone to have to go through all of that. But when she's your age, I hope that she's part of the woman I see looking back at me. And I was just like, wow. Like, and she just went on to say, like, God puts us through things that we want to protect our kids from, or our friends from, or, our family. Like, he puts us through things to grow us into who we are. And, and that's not just a end all. Like, it's a constant thing. Like, we're told that we're going to go through trials in this world, but that's part of that becoming journey, and it just helps to mold who you are, and how you can choose to take all of that and seek God through it, and just how much you grow, and how you just become who God made you to be. And that's one of the things I love about, becoming, being not only a verb and an action, but ongoing.
Oh yeah.
Just become who God, it's becoming, and it's constant. And so that's one of the things that just really drew me to, becoming me, was just that action of constantly becoming.
So good. It's so true. Like, we never arrive.
Yeah.
Ever. So it is for all of us, no matter what season or stage or age we are. Kennedy is becoming, and I love how you even said that earlier, and who she's becoming, and watching that journey. And that's really good. A really, really good word. For all of you watching, make sure to follow Carrie on Instagram or Facebook. Connect with her. If you have questions or want to chat with her more about her story, just please reach out to her. I know that she would love to talk with you, and then be an encouragement to you, but also be an encouragement to her. It takes a lot of bravery and courage to share everything that you've shared with us. And you are modeling what this becoming journey really looks like so well. And I'm just so excited that you're just a part of this community, and that we've met. And just thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I sure do love you, and I'm cheering you on big time.
Thanks, Emily.